Hi, everyone, and welcome to our session, Designing a Mentorship Program to Connect and Develop Pride Members. I'm Jenny Coys, and I'm here today with Jaquita Poole to tell you about our journey in designing and launching a mentorship program in our Pride at Liberty employee resource group at Liberty Mutual.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenny. Hi, everyone. We can't wait to connect with you after this. And thank you for stopping in to see our virtual recording today. So before we jump into the mentorship program, I want to just lay a foundation a little bit about who we are and who Liberty is. So Liberty Mutual, we are a property and casualty insurer that started in 1918, headquarters in Boston. Our ERG, Pride at Liberty, started in 2014. So a little bit of a journey to get there, but we're here now. Pride at Liberty's mission is to provide a community for our LGBTQ plus employees, as well as our allied employees, to promote a global culture that ensures equality in the workplace. Now, my first tip that I want you to take away from this is that knowing your ERG's mission and rooting your program in that is so crucial. So make sure that as you kind of keep us seeing us kind of develop and go into this program, you're thinking in the lens that we did about, hey, does this root us in our mission? So a little bit about me, like Jenny said, I'm Jaquita Poole. I've been with Liberty for 6 years. My primary job, I'm Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Associate Program Manager on the campus recruiting team. And then in Pride, I've been in my role for 4 years now. I am in the Central Zone member engagement team that really kind of works with our local ambassadors, basically in the center of the country, bringing our ERG to life to our members.
Great. And as you heard, my name is Jenny Coys. I work with Jaquita as the West Zone lead, so left side of the country here, and have had the pleasure of working with Jaquita. I think we've been on this journey about the same amount of years together, right from the get-go. So a lot of great experiences and learnings here as we've been going on our personal journeys in Pride as well.
Yeah.
My role, in my main role at Liberty Mutual, is I'm a program manager for our analytics organization. So as you'll hear, I'm not only excited about DEI and Pride, but I'm also kind of a data nerd. So that's going to come through in a few minutes when we talk a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of our program.
I love that. And I got to give Jenny a little plug too. This mentorship is her brainchild. So let's give it up for Jenny. Yes, because this is all started because of her and her passion for mentorship. So actually, Jenny, tell us, why are you so passionate about mentorship?
Well, actually, I've been really lucky. I organically had some really good mentors early on in my career who happened to be part of the LGBTQ plus community.
Okay.
And that was really helpful for me, not only because they were great mentors, but I was able to see a path for myself. There's that whole, if you can see it, you can be it thing.
Yes.
So having that mentorship that considered my identity just as part of that, I was lucky enough to just have that. And I really wanted to see if I could create a little structure so that more people could have a great experience like that and help them get to where they want to go.
Love that. I'm so happy for that experience to have you create this for our ERG. And as y'all see, as we keep going, you'll see why it's so amazing. So keeping going on that trend of like, why a mentorship? So we had heard from members repeatedly that why they were in our ERG was to get more professional development. And so we were doing that in pockets, but really Jenny was kind of thinking about like, how do we bring that to life even more? Secondly, mentorship empowers members to develop relationships with meaningful relationships with other members, right? And so let's be honest, we've already probably been in relationships where like, oh, we're going through the motion and it's just like for show. I know I have, unfortunately. Right? And so we wanted this to be rooted in those meaningful relationships with other members. And then thirdly, like Jenny said, representation matters, right? And so having another person that has a similar identity to you or open, right? Because we're also considering allies in this as well, to create that space of comfortability in the workplace. I think this is what kind of separates our mentorship from other ERG's mentorships. So on that kind of same topic here, so why were members seeking Pride specific mentorships? Can I already hint to this a little bit, right? But you can see on the screen here some verbatim statements that we got from members. Again, coming with representation, being comfortable with their identity in the workplace, right? We all, I'm sure, are working through identities and multiple like layers of that and multiple arenas, and we are at work most of our time, right? So having that space where you feel comfortable is so crucial. And so another kind of big reason and the heart of this mentorship.
So we had heard, there were reasons for this. I had particular experiences that made me want to really get something out there. So how do we approach this, right? So we had talked about starting a mentorship program in the ERG in years prior, but it just hadn't gotten prioritized. It seemed like a really big effort. Our ERG has 16 chapters and thousands of members across the country, and it just never really got going because of some of those complexities, right? We were prioritizing other things. However, then I come in for better or for worse, and I'm like, I really think my member for better. I thought I really think my members in the West need this from what I was hearing and what I was seeing. So I raised my hand and said, can I just create a scrappy pilot program for just my region? It's like a little bit of a safer space, just about 300 members in the West Zone. And funny thing about ERGs, if you raise your hand to lead a big project, usually people are going to say, sure. Do you need anything from me? No, great, go for it. So that's kind of what happened. And we weren't the only ERG at Liberty Mutual. We have other great employee resource groups. So I looked around and saw what other ERGs had mentorship programs to see what I could learn, what I could borrow, what I could steal, right? Let's make this as low lift as possible, right? And things I heard from folks, one great insight from our Asian American professionals ERG was identity was really important to the people who participate in their mentorship program. So they specifically were asking in their placement survey, would you prefer a mentor who is a similar ethnicity as you? So I talked to legal to talk about, that can be a sensitive thing, but how could I ask people for this pilot about identity and preferences? So I had a lot of great learnings and designed what was, just kind of like a basic application survey, announcement email. And I said, perfection is the enemy of the good. Let's just get something out there. So you can kind of see here as we go to the next box, we announced our pilot. I got about 10% of my members signed up for it. They told me via this survey what their goals were, what their interests. I kind of waded through their responses and created 17 matches. And then also collected some baseline data from participants so that I could look back at the end of the pilot and see if it was successful.
There's that data part you're talking about, Jenny.
Buckle up, we're going to talk about it more too. So here, we ran our pilot for 6 months, sent a survey to participants, and the data said, yeah, let's go ahead and expand this, right? We had some lessons learned, which you're going to hear about later in our presentation. So we figured out how we could tackle those and make an even better program. So then about a year after I raised my hand and said, hey, can I just try something out over here? We were looking to expand nationally. I engaged with other Pride leaders like Jaquita to help me kind of bolster this up to be a bigger program that could serve even more members. We'll talk a little bit about how we handled the complexities of going from, 30 members wanting to engage to over 100, right? And how we handled that. So we took our learnings, we created our matches, and we set ourselves up to be even more successful, I think, at scale than we were in the pilot. So we'll talk a little bit more about how we got there as we move forward. So always nice to start with some verbatims, how did we know that we wanted to expand after the pilot? So what did people say when we sent that post-program survey? Overwhelmingly, it was nice feedback, right? It was really heartwarming to hear. We just put this thing out there. We knew it wasn't perfect, but we wanted to give people the opportunity to make those connections and develop. And what we heard from folks said, I really want to hear more people in the ERG outside of the West Zone saying things like this, that it was a positive experience, that it helped them come out in the workplace, that it was a good thing for them, right? And now, how else did I assess that, right? So if I'm pitching let's expand this, let's get other folks to help me out, I want to have some cool verbatims, and also I like to have some numbers to back me up. So we looked at the baseline measurements we did on the next slide to see what our impact was. So we asked just a very simple 4-question survey at the start of the program for the pilot. So I sent people their matches and said, hey, I need you to answer these 4 questions for me, just on a scale of 1 to 5, easy, less than 5 minutes. How connected do you feel within our ERG? How satisfied are you with the ERG? How do you feel like we're supporting your professional development? And how comfortable are you in the workplace? Then at the end of the 6 months, I asked people to answer those same questions so I could kind of see, Did we move the needle on any of these? And again, out of a scale of 1 to 5. So you can see here in our next box where we're able to make some positive improvements on these measures. ERG connection, satisfaction, as well as satisfaction with how people felt like we're supporting their professional development, all moved up. Now, comfort in the workplace, we didn't see as much of a change there. I think there's a few reasons for that. This is one relationship, right? And you probably need more and more of that to really feel comfortable showing up every day. However, we did think about, are there other ways we could work on this? And you'll hear about that in a little bit as well. But really the takeaways from the pre-post measurement was, yeah, this did what we were hoping for. And then on the next slide, you can see a few other ways we tried to measure our impact. Just again, real simple survey questions. How likely would you be to recommend this program to another Pride member? And would you participate again? Something really cool I thought was that people said overwhelmingly, like, yes, I would recommend this and I would like to do it again, which was great to hear. And another thing we were interested about was the identity aspect. So we asked people having gone through this pilot 6-month experience, if they were to do the program again, would they want to be partnered with someone who identified as LGBTQ plus or some combination of the wonderful letters in our acronym? The majority said yes, they would like to. And within that group, about 28% of the people who responded to our survey said they would actually like to be paired with someone within one of their specific LGBTQ plus affinities. So what that emphasized to me is mentorship helps people, and having the Pride focus on it is meaningful to participants. It's not just general mentorship folks are looking for.
Now, Jenny, I'm going to channel my virtual audience, who I believe is here with us, we're in real time, and ask a question to you. Did you make all these surveys? How is that? And if I'm not a survey person, how do I become one? Talk us a little bit through that if you could for a couple minutes.
There are easy tools, as it turns out.
Because I'm not a survey person.
Yeah, I used a program called Survey Analytics, and I just, created some questions. That's a really easy one to use. You can even just ask people to fill out an Excel spreadsheet for you, though, right? There's ways to do this, right? Especially if it's a small pilot. Find someone maybe in your ERG who does surveys as part of their job. That's how I learned about Survey Analytics, right? Okay. So think about the people around you and who could help. There's a lot of great tools out there that you don't need to be an expert. You can get ramped up in pretty quick, or maybe you know somebody who already knows how to use it in your ERG.
Fabulous. Okay. Hopefully virtual audience. I know, like I said, channeling you. I feel like that was a question that needed to be asked.
Thank you, Jaquita. Keep them coming.
Awesome. So from here, lessons learned, right? So Jenny shared with us some data, some really great insight about, yes, people wanted to do this and do it again, which is awesome because we did. But here's another little bit of lessons learned that are not so great.
We didn't get exactly right the first time.
Right. We got to show both sides of this to be very transparent and honest with you all, right? So one of the question surveys was, how many times did you meet with your mentor or mentee during the program? We had a great little amount. You see here 67% that said 3+ times. But we had this big chunk that said 1 to 2 or 0. Now, Jenny, remind us, how long did you run the pilot for? 6 months, right?
Yep.
So probably expectation, maybe assumed expectation, right? To meet once a month.
Yep.
But was that clearly laid out to them?
I thought it was, but it might not have been. And also one caveat is, you might have noticed on our timeline, we launched this program a little bit before March of 2020. And we all know things for a lot of people in that timeline. But I'm not going to let COVID take all the blame.
No, not that.
There's definitely some opportunities we could to clarify expectations. So tell us a little more, Jaquita.
Yeah, and so I think also what's kind of the strong thing, as you see here, is most respondents who didn't meet 1 or no times, their mentee didn't engage. That's the trick, right? And so at least for me, I've been in mentorship relationships, and as a mentee, it was on me to engage with my mentor because I'm the one that needs the help, right? And so I think because again, I've been in mentor-mentee relationships. I have that knowledge, right? But has everyone been in those relationships? Possibly not, right? And so how can we expect for people to follow the rules if we don't help them know what the rules are, right? So that's one piece of it. And then we had a couple respondents with the manager didn't allow them to be in part of this program, which like breaks my heart. It's reality though, right? Let's think about our people potentially it's in call centers who are just such a strict schedule and they can't own any of that. They are on the schedule that is given to them, right? And so thinking through, we can't solve for more time, but how could we solve with getting the managers on board? So as you see on the screen here, there are some ways that we address that. So one was communicating with and encouraging the mentee's manager to be a part of the process, like bringing that person's manager all on the journey right off the top. We also create a really more robust application process as kind of a barrier to entry, which I know sounds like, oh man, that's so rude. A little bit. However, if we're going to do all this work to have this mentorship program, we want to make sure people who are signed up actually want to be in this and are going to devote the time to doing it. And then lastly, I had the privilege of helping Jenny do a kickoff workshop. So right after we matched everyone, we had this one workshop. We gave 2 different options for time zones. And again, being mindful of people's and different time constraints or work constraints, right? We gave 2 different options. But we did a workshop on how to be a good mentor or mentee. And it's both sides, right? Because sometimes the mentors drop the ball too, but we focused on both sides. And we'll show you a couple of slides here in a second. Anything else, Jenny, that you think were like as a big aha from your kind of lens of being in the weeds with this?
I mean, I think you really hit it on the head, Jaquita. It's like setting the expectations and like saying it once maybe isn't enough, right? How do you make sure people kind of hear and absorb that, right? And understand why. And I think providing that structure of the workshop really helped us have better results in our second round when we went national. So excited for folks to hear a little bit more about how we went about that later on, but I do think that made a nice difference for us.
Love it. I think another difference that you are going to talk here in a second is about the matching.
Yes. Yes.
Woo, the matching. That first line, manual. That was a lot, right? Yeah. Not possible if you're going to scale that.
Yeah, I mean, that felt like a lot for about I did 17 pairs in that pilot, and the time was significant, right?
Yeah. So that, and I think also with the surveys, right? And here's another tip for surveys. Again, I'm not a survey person, but this makes 100% sense when you think about it. You have to think about the way in which your survey is designed, because sometimes you do want open responses to get some anecdotal feedback, because right, those quotes mean something. But if it's something that you're like trying to have a clear-cut answer on, having free text can throw everything off.
Please don't do it.
So to Jenny's point, her first survey had questions, right? But the answers were not like yes, no, maybe so, and there wasn't free text. It was 1 through 5. Being able to pull 1 through 5 is much easier to then kind of navigate through, right? You mean I don't know the right terminology with data.
Got it.
But you all get what I mean, right?
All right to me.
Okay, great, awesome. The second piece of this is the equity piece of this, right? And so in Jenny's case with the pilot and her being in the Seattle area, I'm gonna guess out of the 34 people, you knew all of them probably, at least close to.
Roughly half.
Half,
yeah.
Okay, great, even better. But let's be honest, right? When we know someone, that unconscious bias will slip through in your lens of pairing people.
And inevitable, right?
Inevitable. And so how can we think through creating meaningful pairs without that bias? You take the human part out of it. So Jean's going to get to more of that in a second about actually what that means. But we all are human, therefore we all have bias. And then on top of that, you actually know someone or the apparent, thought of someone, right?
Mhm.
Even if it comes to like, oh, this person's high up and this person's low, even all those words, right? Are like, ooh, let's stay clear of those.
Yep.
But thinking through how you at the scale, make sure that
Mhm.
bias is taken out of it as much as you can.
Yeah, especially thinking, I knew most of the folks who applied, but not everybody. So I might have given not intentional, but probably because I had more information about the people I knew, maybe they got a better match,
Yep.
right? So we wanted to really make sure we avoided that when we went bigger,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. So we keep talking, right? You're like, what do you give us some more? Here's some more.
Here is some more. So this slide is, we're not gonna hit every bullet point here, right? This is meant as a resource for you. So take this away and consider it to kickstart your own placement survey. I'm just gonna go and do 2 call outs. You can see here, the first bullet is, what is your name? You probably can't do this if you don't know who the people are, right? But you don't want that, to Chiquita's point, to impact your matching logic. So once you get that back, have somebody just map every name to a number, save the key somewhere, close the file, and forget about it for a while, right? So again, let's take that out of the equation.
Again, for our data people, that's not data people. When you say mapping, so like, do you mean like, okay, so Jaquita, Jenny, Sam, Colin, versus those, then you take 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yeah, so open up an Excel spreadsheet. Good old Excel. put all the names of the people who applied, copy and paste them into a column. And then the next column, just give a number, 1 through 30, 1 through 100, whatever it is.
Lovely. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, find a data analyst who knows how to do a VLOOKUP. They got you. It's gonna be great. My one other call out, and maybe you're sick of hearing this because we talked about it on the last slide, but I'm going to say it again because it's important. Do not use free text. We even used more free text in the expansion than we probably should have. Next year, a little bit. Yeah, like sometimes we need it. But you can see here, I've listed like only allow whole number responses or select yes or no, because it's going to be annoying when some people say why and some people say yes, right? It's all these complications that you don't want to deal with a big batch of applicants. And also things, like top job strength or development opportunity. I got some really rich data in the pilot when people just poured their hearts out in the text box for me. That was awesome. But again, if hundreds of people apply to a program, I'm not going to be able to do that. Chiquita's not going to be able to do that. Like, I'm not going to be able to convince enough people that that's a good idea. So use a limited list. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to allow you to do this at scale. So keep that in mind. No free text if you can avoid it.
Okay, telling my audience, where'd you get a list from?
So we looked at some of our talent profiles. So our company kind of knows like, what are top job skills for different areas? And we kind of found some big themes out of that. So when going national, I mentioned I like grabbed a few other people in the ERG to help out and make this better. And another person in our ERG worked in talent and was able to help me figure that out. So, and you could also just make up some, like look on LinkedIn and see what some of the top LinkedIn skills are, right? The idea here is just find a decent list. Don't overcomplicate it. Just give yourself something to work with, like for people to choose from.
I love the idea of tying it to your company's job profiles, because then you're really helping the people get those skills that are going to be valuable for your company to go into that next job, right? And I'm sure these skills are valuable anywhere. Hopefully your people are not looking to leave though. But if you are tying it to your company's job profiles, everyone has that common language, right? So I can think of like, maybe this is one of them, but like growth mindset. We talk about that all the time here at Liberty.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's one of the things that's on the list, right? So think through what are those capabilities at your company that are like the hot ticket items as your list.
Yeah, I love that. So on the next slide, again, my suggestion is find a data analyst in your ERG to help you out with this. And, like a lot of opportunities to volunteer in our employee resource groups are like event planning, project management, like being the hype person. That's not everybody, right? And you probably have folks who are looking to get involved in different ways. And this is a cool, meaningful way that somebody who likes noodling around in a spreadsheet can make a great contribution. So the takeaway here is creating a scorecard that's going to allow you to systematically match people instead of having, somebody like me over there being like, oh, I think Jaquita's going to get along great with the VP of sales. Let's not do that. Right. You're going to have kind of like your
VP.
Yeah.
But yes.
So have a few variables. So like you can kind of see here, we asked people what grade level they were in our organizational hierarchy, how important it was for them to participate in this program. Was it like super important? They're like, I'd like to, but like, I'm going to be okay if you don't place me, right? We also asked people about where in the country they sat and their identity preferences. So who would you like to be paired with if we have options? And of course, it's not a only select one, right? We can be combinations of all these different identities. So keep that in mind if you're giving folks a selection list that, multiple choices there are good. What we did here is we asked people these questions and then we put them into our model and we weighted the different variables. So how important someone indicated this was to them had more weight than their region. Like it could be totally cool to have a mentor in a different region, right? But like maybe it'd be nice to have another person in your city, right? But we think that value is more important. The variable we put the most weight on was that identity. Again, because we're an LGBTQ plus an ally resource group. So that's the big need we wanted to meet if we could. Obviously, all these other things are important, but weighted that most highly.
Love that. And again, go back to the thing we just talked about, bias. Doing it this way, numbers are driving it.
Yep.
Not person.
Yep.
Genius.
And added bonus, it's a lot faster.
Yes, that less manual part of it.
Yeah.
Go for those.
You can see on the slide, we had 200 people we were trying to match. So not only did we get a good outcome that helped us avoid some of our personal unintended but inevitable biases, we also did it in a faster way, which is key if you're going to expand this to a big group.
Love it. Awesome. So we have the matches. Amazing way of doing it. Less manual, no bias. Amazing. So again, to take off from another of the tidbits here, we want to set these people up for success. Hence, we have the kickoff. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jenny, with this timeline, but you let people know like towards the end of the year, beginning of the year time frame.
Yeah.
And then the expectation that the program kicked off in February.
Yes.
So what we did was a few weeks before February, we launched this kickoff. In that kickoff, we went over a program overview of like, what is this Pride Mentorship? So everyone had the same language. Also, what are the expectations of you being in this program?
That sounds like a response to one of our lessons learned.
It sure is. I need to bring that back around. But everyone was on the same page and knew what this was for and what the expectations were. We next went over how to discuss this program with your manager, because again, we had the assumption that everyone knew how to talk about it, but some people just don't. And that's not their fault. So we're going to give them the tools to do just that. We had a little flavor, LGBTQ plus flavor on the program. So wanted to emphasize that as kind of the root, again, tying back to our mission, right? And tying that back into this and encouraging people that this is a safe space for you to be open. And then finally ended with some tips and resources for being a good mentor-mentee. And again, we did address both because it's, yes, the mentee kind of drives the conversation and drives it, but the mentor also has to do their part.
And, we had people sign up to be a mentor in this program as a development opportunity for themselves. So, and that's a cool thing, right? This is a great opportunity for someone going to that next level, but maybe they haven't done it before, right? So it definitely goes both ways.
Yep, 100%. So with this one, we had just, again, for those expectations, right? So you have them here, so you know them. And again, you could use these as your baseline. You can change them completely, but here's what we offered to our participants. So they were required to commit to monthly meetings, right? Because again, in that pilot, we had saw there was a mix of people, even though it was for 6 months and it was COVID, but again, we had a lot of people that were in that 1 to 0 time frame of meeting. So we made a clear expectation that, hey, you need to meet monthly. We don't care what date. We don't care if you can do more. Fantastic. but monthly for 10 months. And we encourage people, the mentees, to own that calendar cadence.
Very
so again,
important.
calling out clearly, after this call, mentee, set up that cadence. It can change after this, but you have to set it up now.
Get it on the calendar. Don't need to remember every month. Just set up the series. Let's go, right?
And we'll see in a second, like that was super helpful for people to get them, again, the direction, the clear direction, and then give them an action item to complete. Secondly, we have them sign a partnership agreement. Now, did we collect these? No, we didn't. We didn't care.
We told people we didn't want to see them.
We didn't want to see them. However, something mentally about you signing something and me signing something to commit, wild tool.
Yeah. And there's no legal binding thing. It's just an exercise for folks to be like, yep, let's do this, right?
Yes.
It really does make you feel like you made a commitment with someone.
Yep. And we instructed people in that first meeting to go over this contract together, fill it out, and make sure that y'all on the same page. Again, setting that foundation for a successful launch. And again, giving them a clear expectation of what we needed from them to do. Some people actually think did send their partnerships agreements in to us. Again, we didn't require them, but again, I appreciated them following through.
we must have given some clear feeling in that meeting that there were expectations that you needed to complete your action items.
Yeah.
So that was nice to see.
Very. And then lastly, again, we really wanted to root this program in the fact that it was for the Pride ERG. And so we encourage people, they didn't have to, but encourage them that some of these monthly topics when you meet should be LGBTQ plus focus. That could, and we gave them a list, so they didn't have to come up with things either. So again, clear expectations, clear resources, but then made it so that they can customize it based off of their relationship. But again, setting that foundation that this was a safe space and to lean into talking about LGBTQ focused items. Because it's needed. Awesome. And then last kind of resource I'll show you, this is the exact slide that I used when I was talking about what a good mentee and a good mentor, good in relative terms, right? Should do to set up a successful start, right? So clearly calling out the mentee, clearly calling out the mentor. And we sent out these slides too to them afterwards. They had them as a resource. And we also used a team site. I'm not for sure if we're talking about that in here, but we did have a collective team site for all of them to be on. And we add this into it as well. So they always can reference back to it.
Try to make it easy for folks, right? Like give them the resources, make it easy for them to use.
Yep. But to Jenny's point, like maybe it was someone's first time being a mentor and they're probably wondering like, oh snap, where do I start? Give them the tools right here to start you off your journey. Awesome. And lastly, again, this is the direct slide we used. So take it with you if you want to, but at the very end, we shared this slide. Because honestly, it is a mutual relationship. The mentee gets as much out of it as the mentor gets out of it, right? So we want to lay this out that both sides have to do their part to make it work for each other. I think we got some like hearts at this time when we sent this out, when we put it out.
We were far enough into virtual work that people had kind of figured out how to use the reaction.
Yes.
Yeah, this really resonated with people. And I think it was a nice call to action for folks. Like, you know, like it makes sense. You read the slide, right? But if you don't intentionally ask people to focus and sit with this, you might not get the engagement you're wanting or set the right expectation.
Yep, 100%.
So here's just another resource slide. This is an example of that partnership agreement that you heard Jaquita mention that we use for our program. And actually, I didn't create this. I borrowed it from another employee resource group's mentorship program and tweaked it to fit Pride, right? Easy. But the point here, you know, do whatever works for you. It doesn't have to be overly formal or complicated, but just get something out there to kind of get that mental effect and the commitment that Jaquita was talking about here, that people are setting the ground rules, setting the expectations, and setting goals for the relationship so that both people can get out of it what they're hoping for.
Yeah. I also love that you used another ERG's resource, right? You're not
Mhm.
recreating the wheel. Love
Yes.
it. Brilliant.
Yes. Use the other great folks in your company who are probably doing similar work to make it easier for yourself. So we also talked about, you heard a few minutes ago about the LGBTQ plus focus. This was really important for me to make sure we had. And interestingly, we had a ton of allies apply to our program. And we actually had, you can see on the slide, some pairs that were 2 allies. And we realized what happened here, the reason we think this occurred is we were very open. Like you heard that we kind of had a more robust application process to make sure people are committed and interested, but you didn't need to be a certain level in the organization to apply. And we realized a lot of other programs available to people at the time did have like a minimum level requirements. You had to be a certain place in your career. And we said, come on, come all, more the merrier, right? And that led a lot of allies who wanted an opportunity to find it with pride. And so we thought, what a great opportunity to get more allies thinking about LGBTQ plus topics. So you'll see in a minute some of those topics that we suggested again as a potential takeaway resource. And we really encouraged our allies to engage with these. We pointed them toward ally education to like maybe complete together, right? And we did emphasize these as optional. You know, sometimes talking about identity is sensitive. So we made sure that people knew like these are options. Make sure you're both comfortable before engaging in a conversation, and hopefully use this as inspiration. Again, monthly pushing something like this to folks so they remember I'm not just in a mentorship program, I'm in a pride mentorship program.
I love it. And I want to know to like emphasize that Jenny just said is so like in that teams that we created for all mentees and mentors, we were reminding them monthly, like, hey,
Mhm.
here's a suggested topic you talk about with your mentor mentee. Again, not required, but making sure that this was in front of them at all
Mhm.
times to just not let them forget.
Yep. And again, like trying to make it easy for folks. Like you don't even need to come up with your own topic. Like sometimes I've been in a mentorship relationship where I'm the mentee and I was like, oh my God, what are we going to talk about this month? Am I the only anxious one out there?
No.
So make it easy, right? Pick from this list, pick from what we gave you in the our team's monthly note, right? There's great conversations to be had.
Love it.
So moving on here, we're coming up to the end of 2021, believe it or not, and we're getting to the point where we need to do our measurements for this first national cohort of the Pride at Liberty Mentorship Program. So the real takeaway I want you to have here is think about the impact you want to make, and then make sure you have the mechanisms to measure that. So one tool to figure out what impact you want to make is one of the people I was working with on this program made this impact map where she kind of said like, what are all the things we could influence? What would our goals be? Like, what would success look like? And then we use that to say, okay, what do we need to ask in our baseline survey? What do we need to ask like in a pulse survey a couple months in to make sure that people are engaging and like lend a hand if something's going awry and folks aren't meeting, right? What do we need to ask in that post-program survey? So again, what impact do you want to create with your members? And just make sure that you set yourself up for success to measure that so that hopefully you can be giving a similar presentation next year about how wonderful your mentorship program went as well. And speaking of measuring success, as we move on to our last slide, since this is a pre-recorded virtual workshop, we don't know if we made an impact with you, right?
No idea.
So
I feel like we
leave us
did
some
though.
comments.
I feel like we did.
Yeah, right? I had fun. Yeah, good. Round of applause. But really, engage with us, leave us some comments, connect with us on LinkedIn. Let us know what you like. Let us know how your mentorship program is going, what challenges, obstacles, and opportunities you found. We'd love to hear from you and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference and wish you luck in rolling out or developing your own mentorship programs in your ERGs.
Thank you so much, Jenny, for letting me be a part of this today.
Thank
And again,
you.
one more round of applause for Jenny,
Oh,
because
and
this baby
I
would not
can't.
have come apart without you. So, for real though, connect with us. We would love to stay, have this conversation continue.
Mhm.
So, reach out to us. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.